Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian show by Joyeeta Basu. I am the editor of the New Delhi-based newspaper, the Sunday Guardian. Today I want to discuss what is being perceived as a rough patch in India-US relations. Now, this rough patch is being attributed directly to India's neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, the problem is this particular foreign policy irritant is impacting Indians in general. Getting a visa to the United States has become a nightmare. 800 upward days in certain categories just for a visa appointment. While for China, it is as low as 2 to 3 days, and with Pakistan around a month in certain categories. Now, in such a scenario, it's but natural that the US selling to Pakistan a $450 maintenance package for Pakistan's F-16 fleet will be seen as the US ignoring India's security interests and arming its rogue neighbor. Now, just as no one believes Secretary of State Antony Blinken when he says that the visa delay is because of staff shortage, Indian analysts are now leaning towards the theory that the US is being anti-India through the F-16 deal. Now, for the record, the US has denied this, saying that the deal has to do with its own strategic interests in the AFPAC region. So, it's primarily about Pakistan helping it to retain a foothold in Afghanistan. Now, even if this is correct, such is the deficit of trust that in India at least, no one is willing to believe the US. And when it does not help, when the US ambassador to Pakistan, Donald Blum, not only visits Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, but also does not call it a disputed territory. In fact, he gives POK independence from India by calling it by the Pakistani name, Azad Kashmir. In fact, this Sunday's lead report in the Sunday Guardian talks exactly about this situation. It is headlined, Anti-India Elements in US Using Ukraine as Excuse to Target Delhi. Now, the report by Abhinandan Mishra says that these forces have been active ever since Prime Minister Narendra Modi's rise to power in 2014, given their antipathy towards him since the time he was Gujarat Chief Minister. Now, some of these US officials may not be openly opposing New Delhi's neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine war because of the belief that India is paramount in US policy to stop China from becoming a global hegemon. But in private, they are firmly placing India in the Russian camp, and their policy formulation is reflecting that. Now, the Sunday Guardian report also quotes a US Congressional Research Service report titled India-Russia Relations and Implications for US Interests. Now, this report has been presented to the US Congress. Now, the congressional report suggests certain incentives and certain disincentives that the US can provide India with to ensure it takes a harder stand against Russia. Now, among the incentives, the report suggests amending US law to further facilitate arms sales to India, reinstating India as eligible for the generalized system of preferences, a US trade and development program from which India was removed in 2019. It talks about making financial commitments to India's energy or other sectors. It also talks of deepening trade ties with India, about more cooperation in fields of health and emerging technologies, as well as clean energy. Now, among the disincentives it suggests are potential secondary sanctions on Indian purchases of Russian arms, apart from sanctioning Indian officials found to be involved in quote-unquote violence against sections of the population. You understand, basically the human rights charges that the Western media keeps hurling at India. Now, basically, the report says make that into an issue. So, where are we going to place the recent steps that have been taken by the US that India perceives as against its interests? The ones that I talked about at the beginning of the program. Obviously, as disincentives. However, by using Pakistan as a disincentive for India, the Biden administration is playing its card clumsily. In 2022, you don't pretend to go back to hyphenating India with Pakistan, a country whose GDP is more or less the size of Mumbai. And what is Pakistan? A military state with a sham democracy, the incubator of international terrorism, the creator of the Taliban, which humiliated the US, the country that offered a safe house to one of the US's biggest enemies, Osama bin Laden. Now, throughout history, Pakistan has taken American aid with one hand and stabbed the US from the front, not even the back, with another. And now it's a client state of China and will not side with the US or the West if China is involved. As it became apparent recently at the United Nations Human Rights Council, where it voted against the Western resolution against China's human rights violations in Xinjiang. So Pakistan is a lost cause for the US. As for India-US relationship, it is a work in progress, with history being a baggage. In the past, the US had not only hyphenated India with the military dictatorship of Pakistan, but had also propped up the latter against India. Now, if India is dependent to a large extent on Russia for its defense material, it is because the West was not selling its weapons or transferring technology to Delhi for decades. Hence, there is no escaping the trust deficit. In fact, US's track record of dealing with friends and partners does not serve as a confidence booster to the world. Moreover, it is almost as if the China threat no longer matters to President Joe Biden. The reason why even Quad should ideally be turned to a platform to bash Russia, if Mr. Biden had his way. Let us face it, China is the greatest threat to the democratic world as we know it. And it is China that is benefiting the maximum as the focus shifts to Russia. Now, amid this, the US needs to realize that if it tries to play politics or tries to teach India and Indians a lesson, there is bound to be a backlash, which is not good. Now, it will not be intelligent on the part of the US to let the Russia-Ukraine war impact its relations with India. Now, India-US relations are more than the two being strategic and security partners to counter China militarily. We are the two of the world's most important democracies, and so our relations are about trade, technology, people-to-people relationship, about the Indian diaspora, about humanitarian issues, health, culture, science, research, climate. It's a huge range. But then we Indians too need to sort out the conundrum of having strong trade and people-to-people ties with the US while having a strong defense relationship with Russia for historical reasons. Now, we are now living through the challenges such a situation throws up, where we have the potential of becoming collateral damage. Is that desirable for a rising India? No. So we need to think which way we are headed. Perhaps we too need to do some soul searching about the Russia factor. Our neutrality is not selling to the world. And is that in our interest? I don't think so. I intend to talk about this soon in another video. Thank you for watching. Until the next time.